Alright guys, we are back in Yaz Island this weekend. We got a light heavyweight bout, Magomed Ankalaev versus Bogdan Guskov, and this fight really just shows what a mess light heavyweight really is. A lot of the blame on where light heavyweight is right now is because of Yuri Prochazka. The way he handled his last title fight against Carlos Alberg was something honestly as a fan I could never forgive him of, because he was supposed to be the champion that night. You have a champion in Carlos Alberg who is essentially only champion because Yuri decided he didn't want to be. Imagine having a fight and leaving the arena that night injured so badly that 4 months later we as fans still don't know when you're going to be healthy enough to fight, but you still left that night as a world champion. That's exactly how Carlos Alberg got his belt. Imagine Max Holloway the other night refusing to finish Conor because it wasn't the noble thing to do and instead let him up, and Conor landed a crazy left hand and knocked out Max Holloway. That would have opened dimensions that the UFC wouldn't have even known how to handle, and that's essentially what's going on at light heavyweight. The UFC is struggling to navigate the rest of the guys in the division. The butterfly effect that night had is still ruining 205 today. So after Khalil Roundtree had to pull out, now Ankalaev is matched up with the number 9 ranked Bogdan Guskov. It's kind of crazy going into this fight when I'm breaking it down. Ankalaev and Guskov both fought to a draw against Jan Blachowicz. I don't know how that's going to help us win any bets, but I just thought that that's a pretty crazy stat. I think one of the lazier breakdowns you're going to hear, and we're watching footage now, is that Ankalaev is going to struggle with leg kicks. We've really only seen that against Alex Pereira and again a little bit against Jan Blachowicz, but two of those guys are some of the best leg kickers we have in the UFC. I respect Bogdan stepping up to this fight, but there's really no path to victory for him here. You could argue he might have a slight edge in power, but I don't think he has the technical attributes to make that power count. The skill gap in Ankalaev's striking is just way too wide. It's crazy that first fight with Alex Pereira and Ankalaev went to a decision. It was 25 minutes of purely striking. I don't know how much wrestling we're going to see in this fight, but if we do see any, Ankalaev is going to have an advantage there as well. Watching here, I think Bogdan moves a little bit too much with his hands down, and I don't think you can afford to do that against Ankalaev. I'm going to take Ankalaev to win here. I wouldn't be surprised if he found a finish. We have a UFC fight night coming up this weekend, and we're making all of our lineups on PrizePicks. What I love about PrizePicks is every player has a set projection, and you could go more than or less than that projection. Play one lineup for $5 and use code DEATHROW. You get 150 entries just like that. PrizePicks is available in most states, including California, Texas, Florida, and New York. Tell me every week and use code DEATHROW. Looking at the co-main event here, this is really the one that I'm most excited for, and there's a few reasons for that. The one is that flyweight has been such an exciting division. I feel like every week we're watching one of the greatest fights of all time, and they're coming from flyweight. Literally, it's a classic every weekend. But the main reason I'm so excited for this fight is I've become such a fan of Steve Erceg. Steve Erceg was on an 11-fight win streak that led him all the way up into a UFC title fight against Pantoja. He had some decent moments in that fight, showed that he belonged, but ultimately he lost. And what happened after that was 3 consecutive losses, the first time in his career. The next fight he gets is against Kai Kara-France, where he gets devastatingly knocked out in the first round. Then he fights Brandon Moreno, where he loses another decision. And this is where it gets scary for a lot of guys. This is someone who won 11 fights in a row, got to the very top of the division, riding an 11-fight win streak into a UFC World Championship, and then losing 3 consecutive fights breaks most people. You could go back and look at stats of fighters who've lost 3 consecutive fights. Most fighters never recover from that. But Steve did something most fighters never do. He stayed active, and I think that saved him his career. Looking here, 5 months after losing to Moreno, he fought Ode Osborne, where he gets back in the win column. If you're a fan of the sport, you know how crucial confidence is, and sitting on 1 loss can be devastating, but sitting on 3 consecutive losses can be catastrophic. Steve just refused to let that happen. He stayed active. Now he's on a 2-fight win streak, and he's back ranked at number 11 in the world. Now he's back in there again against a really tough guy in Ramazan Tamirov. Tamirov is definitely not an easy night out. He's 19-3. He's on an 11-fight win streak right now. He's coming off that win at Charles Johnson, who's a problem for a lot of guys at flyweight, and he's got a lot of knockouts on his resume here. He was starching dudes in Ryzen, starching dudes at NFC, and all these other organizations. I think he might have a power advantage here. We're going to look at some footage. I'm going to imagine Tamirov is going to come out pretty aggressive with that forward pressure. He's not really throwing a lot behind his strikes. He leads with his power shot almost every time. He's trying to take the guy's head off here. Yeah, he's kind of just blitzing in, relying on that explosive pressure. He's crazy explosive, but he's not really throwing combinations. Tamirov is looking to beat you with one explosive movement, where Erceg is more going to pick you apart with his clean boxing. And the one time we've seen Erceg knocked out in his career was against Kai Kara-France, and it wasn't with that explosive one-punch style. When Kai knocked out Erceg, it was actually with a beautiful combination. We're going to watch here. He was stalking him, taking his time. Watch how he threw that jab to the body. Kai's throwing feints. Watch on that blitz. Throws that right to the body and then that left back up to the head. It's a beautiful beautiful combination, and it completely puts Urseg away. Now, again, if we go back to what we were watching from Tamirov, the different level of striking, and I don't think he has those traps and feints that he's going to need to put a guy like Urseg away. Where a guy like Kai Kara-France was throwing 2 punches to get to the punch he needed to put Urseg away, where a guy like Tamirov, I think he's just trying to kill you with that first punch. I'm taking Steve Urseg to win here. I think this is going to be a striking masterclass. Next up, we're looking at Islam Dulatov and Wellington Turman, and I'm pretty sure this is the biggest favorite of the card. Islam has got to be coming in as a crazy favorite. It's a pretty insane matchup. Islam's on a 12-fight win streak, and Wellington is on a 3-fight losing streak. You really don't see that a lot. I had to double check, but yeah, Islam's on a 12-fight win streak. His only loss came in his professional debut. Since then, he's won 12 fights in a row. Meanwhile, yeah, Turman's on a 3-fight losing streak. The last win he got was all the way back in 2022. This one's probably going to be ugly. It does kind of feel like this is another Dana White Contender Series guy in Islam that they're trying to use Wellington as a highlight. Looking here, I think that Islam does have a pretty high ceiling. He's a pretty dynamic striker. I don't see any glaring weaknesses. Besides, I don't love his body type for welterweight. The issue is Islam is 6'3". I think before this, he legitimately used to be a runway model, and you just don't want to see a guy that skinny in there with someone like Michael Morales. Just a tough visual because of how small he is. I don't think size is going to be an issue for this fight, though. I think Islam Dulatov is going to have a highlight finish over Wellington. Finally, in my opinion, this is the people's main event. We're looking at Magomed Chanko and Damian Respecki. Chanko became a cult favorite before his UFC debut. It's actually insane we haven't even seen him fight in the UFC other than his Dana White Contender Series. Now we finally get to see him make the walk, and he's doing that against Damian Respecki, 24 years old, fighting out of Poland, who's also an undefeated fighter. Funny though, because I include myself in this, but we as fans see a guy from Dagestan and we just assume he's going to be a boring, grappling, heavy fighter, but there's a lot of guys coming out of there who have incredible striking, and Chanko actually is one of these guys. I want to pull this up in case you guys missed his Dana White Contender Series fight, but it's pretty insane how legitimate he is at strike. It almost looks funny because you see someone and you're just so used to them just grappling, getting on top, and holding you down. And I don't know if he's just fighting like this because he's on the Dana White Contender Series and he wants to show that he's an exciting fighter. He's not just going to shoot for takedowns and be boring. But either way, his striking looks so good. I'm actually really excited for this fight. It's just weird to see a guy with no mustache and a beard having striking that good and not diving for takedowns. From what I've seen from Damian, he comes out in his fights super aggressive and tries to break his opponents early, but I think that's going to leave him open for some counters, and I think Chanko's going to pick him apart and find a win early. Last fight on the main card I'm breaking down, we got the heavyweights here, Rizvan Kuniev and Tyrell Fortune. This one's pretty easy to break down. There's nothing that Tyrell has shown me that makes me believe that he can compete with Kuniev. In my mind, Kuniev is quietly becoming one of the dark horses at heavyweight. I think he is completely starching Gable Steveson. Super solid boxing, and that win with Jelton Almeida was still impressive to me. Looking here now, I forgot that his UFC debut was against Curtis Blaydes, and he took Curtis Blaydes to a decision. He lost, but it was still a split decision in his UFC debut. Barring a one-punch knockout early, I don't think Tyrell has much chance to win this fight. We're taking Kuniev to win here, probably by knockout as well. So just to recap on my main card predictions, we have Ankalaev, Steve Urseg, Islam, Chanko, and Kuniev. I am going to be firing off on Prize Picks though. This is my main play if you want to follow. I have Ankalaev moneyline. I have Sam Patterson to go over a round and a half, and I have Steve Urseg to go over 2.5 rounds. Let me know what your lock of the card is so I could tail it. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.